Welcome to rural Crossroads of Butler County. Tonight we explore the story of Towanda. In Osage, the word Towanda means many waters or rushing waters.
The Reverend Isaac Mooney is fondly referred to as the father of Towanda. This term of endearment encompasses his originality in platting the town in 1870, as well as his generous nature. He donated land for the cemetery and gave away lots to encourage settlement. The original plat is located at the southwest corner of present-day Towanda. The city was incorporated in 1905.
So join us tonight as we explore the story of Towanda. The first settler that came to the area we now know as Towanda was C.L. Chandler. But in the spring of 1863, a young 27-year-old arrived named James R. Meade. Meade was born in Vermont in 1836, but had spent most of his growing up years in Iowa, where he developed an interest in hunting and the outdoors. Stories of the California gold rush prompted Meade to want to come west, and he eventually came to Kansas territory during the Bleeding Kansas period. After spending a time in Leavenworth and Lecompton and Lawrence, he made his way down to what we now know as Towanda, where he settled near what we call the Big Spring. Meade called it Meade's Ranch. One of the factors that makes James R. Meade so unique is that he wrote lots of letters to his parents back in Iowa. He also kept essentially what amounted to a travel diary or a travel journal of his experiences. Once he arrived in the area we now know as Towanda, he saw a great opportunity. With the comings and goings of Native Americans and early settlers, he saw an opportunity for a trading post. He did his research and he met lots of people, and in a very short time, his trading post was quite lucrative. He also met individuals like Kit Carson, William Bent, and many more. By 1867 and 1868, Meade was so well known that he was being asked to appear and be involved in negotiations, including the Treaty of the Little Arkansas in present-day Wichita. Meade's familiarity with trading posts and the people of the plains was always in competition, part frontiersman, part town builder. By 1868, he relocated to what would become Wichita and became essentially the founder of what was known as the Peerless Princess of the Plains, or Wichita, which was finally incorporated in 1870. Meade wrote much about his life in the years to come, and we have an invaluable asset in his book, Hunting and Trading on the Great Plains, which many people who are scholars of the West and the Plains consider it almost required reading. Meade died in Wichita in 1910.
Early, James R. Meade did a wonderful business on the fur trade. There were Indian tribes coming from everywhere. They were camped out here by the river. You can see the lay of the land. It comes down off the hill. And he said that land before he got to the river was just lush with green grass. The Indians would come up and trade with them and water their horses. Pioneers would stop by all the time. He would trade with pioneers like Jesse Chisholm and Indian chiefs, and he did a very lucrative business until about 67 is when he sold it off and moved to Wichita.
He had a bigger vision than Towanda, and so he sold off his portion of stuff to a man named Samuel Fulton, and from there Samuel extended the building, built on. That's where our first schoolhouse was. When they had bigger visions and business was booming and got bigger, he actually moved the school up the hill, and his wife was the first school teacher. From there, they sold everything off and moved down south to town. But still to this day, he's known as one of our big founding pioneers. He sold things to Isaac Mooney, who was the local pastor, and Isaac Mooney and his son bought all the land at the top of the hill from the spring, and they went out and staked out and made the first addition and homestead addition that they sold off, and that's where everyone started building their homes. So.
On the night of March 31st, 1892, a devastating tornado hit Towanda. Of Of course, in those days, there was no alert system to warn the residents. The storm took 9 lives and injured 14 more. Many of the injuries were awful and gruesome. The next day, when news of the storm reached El Dorado, residents thought it was an April Fool's joke, and of course it wasn't. When people saw the wreckage in Towanda, they were surprised the death count wasn't higher. Amazingly, Towanda rebuilt in the years to come.
The Waterfall stock farm was started by J.W. Robinson. He purchased land along the Whitewater River in 1879. He eventually creates a Percheron breeding facility in 1884. He actually brought the breeding horses over from Europe. When the central barn was officially dedicated on June 5th, 1909, it was reported that 2,000 invited guests arrived by special trains and participated in the largest barn dance ever held in Kansas. The most famous sire that the Robinson Ranch produced was Casino. Casino won 115 first place prizes and championships. This includes wins at the American Royal and the World's Fair in St. Louis in 1904. So over the years, Robinson added to his land holdings. At one point, he had 17,000 acres at the Waterfall stock farm. He branched into cattle, and he was also the first in the state to grow alfalfa. After the passing of J.W. Robinson, his son J.C., who had partnered with his father in 1895, takes over the tradition of the farm. By 1911, he had grown the breeding facility to the largest one in the United States. The farm today, the central barn of the Waterfall stock farm, has undergone extensive renovations and is now on the National Register of Historic Places. The discovery of oil in Butler County proved to be advantageous for Towanda. The trap shooter lease, named by a group of trap shooting friends, produced 10,000 to 15,000 barrels of oil a day at its peak. Oil gushers attracted spectators hoping to get a glimpse of black gold.
It definitely changed the economy in our tiny town, and we weren't a tiny town anymore. It brought in everything. I mean, we had a movie theater. We had big traveling air domes that would come through town to give people entertainment in the summer months when it was too hot to go into the theater. We had all kinds of shows and exciting. I mean, there was this excitement in the streets. They did large holiday parties all the time. There was just so many people. I think at one point I read an article that said that they had 5,000 people come in one day just to see the oil spill out of that trap shooter. So it was crazy to know that all those people just travel here by train just to see oil come out of the ground and then go home.
The strength of Towanda was that it had an infrastructure prior to the oil boom. So while population fell to 350 or so, the town was able to survive. In addition, several boom towns appeared close to Towanda. The most notable was Midian. Located near the current intersection of Shumway and 10th Street, Midian once reported a population of 6,000 before its rapid decline in the 1940s and eventually its complete demise.
By 1935, the oil boom had rapidly declined. Towanda went from 1,800 inhabitants to 363. The plethora of oil rigs that once dotted the landscape had been removed. Only a few working relics remained. The land around Towanda returned to pasture.
A lot of people were moving to the bigger city. Towanda took that dive after the oil went away. There's really not much to say other than everybody started moving away.
Yeah. I think
the boom wasn't there anymore.
the only thing that continued to sustain were, the farmers and ranchers in the area. We never really had a replacement industry after that.
But in the 1960s, people lived downtown in these buildings. They used to live on the second story. They ran their shops, the businesses they could. But in the 1970s, I saw that myself, that all those shops went away. And it became a ghost town here. As a kid, I used to walk down the street here by myself in the middle of the day. They started putting the fire department downtown, and the library was there. There was a little grocery, but that was it. And then when the 80s came, it started becoming that bedroom community to where everybody was going elsewhere for work and then coming home.
I think when the highway diverted the traffic around town, that's when you really saw the biggest decline, in things. And I think that what we have today is maintained because of the schools, because I think having all those outside communities join together for the school, it has maintained somewhat of traffic through town in a way.
There's always been spirit here, though. We've always wanted that new library or some improvements, and we went through some hard times.
The face of Towanda has changed over the past 150 years, but the spirit of the community has remained strong.
To learn more about the area, please visit the Towanda Area Historical Museum. Join us again in 2 weeks, where we explore the rural crossroads of Douglas.